Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. I was like, Spike, did you watch the new movie, Soul, that new Pixar movie?
I have not. No.
Okay. Spoiler alert. It's not any crucial plot revealing moment, but there's one part in the show where the guy who he's getting a second chance at life, his body is being taken over by another soul, and the other soul is experiencing his life, and he's at the barber's that he usually goes to. And in his talking to the barber, and he's told the person who's taking over his body right now, this is the barber I usually go to. He's the best barber. He's always wanted to be a barber. His number one thing he can do is be the best barber out there. And, right. The person who took over his soul is now sitting in the chair, and they start talking to him, saying, hey, it's amazing. You've always wanted to be a barber. And they're like, well, I didn't really always want to be a barber. They're like, really? He's like, no, actually, I want to be a veterinarian. And then starts this progression of a conversation in which the main character gets to learn all about their barber. And as they're leaving the barber shop, he's like, hey, I didn't know all that stuff about you. He's like, well, you never asked. And, I'm actually really glad you did today. Yep. And that established in the movie a long lasting bond that wasn't there before, but all it took was a genuine asking, hey, what's your problem? Yep. And that's the part, Spike, that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when we ask people, what's your problem? They're going to tell us.
Yeah. And they're going to tell us their way. And that's okay. In Oakland, I had someone come out, and I was in an area, it was probably 70, 80% black. And we had a lot of African Americans, a lot of Jamaican immigrants actually that came out. And they were asking me all these different questions. And it was interesting to see. We had the libertarian crowd and the local crowd that came out. And the libertarian crowd was stuff like, on what day are you going to end the Fed? And I'm like, day one. And they're like, yay, that kind of stuff. But then I had many different questions, healthcare, housing, gentrification, all these different things. But one person asked me, and the reason I always point this out is because of the way that they asked it. He said to me, he was talking about the fact that, his children that are going to school hear almost nothing about African American history, especially local African American history. They hear about European history. They hear about Roman history. They hear about early American history. They hear, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and maybe one or two other people, but they're not hearing about like this apparently very rich history of civil rights people and immigrant rights people in the Bay Area, in Oakland. Why are they not hearing it? And he said, so if you get into office, what are you going to give us? Again, now think as a libertarian what this sounds like. What are you going to give us for us to be able to get, to get the education for our children? All he's doing, he's giving us an objection, right? And now it's on you, right, to uncover the real objection. In the world of wine, there are so many choices, and that's why Blood of Tyrants Wine has tyrants losing their heads. Whether you're looking for a new go-to at home or want to impress your friends at a party, Blood of Tyrants Wine has you covered. And if you're trying to get rid of some pesky tyrants in your life, well, we've got that covered too. Head to BrianNicholsShow.com/wine and get $5 off your order. One more time, BrianNicholsShow.com/wine. Free men don't ask permission, so take a sip. You'll be glad you did. It's up to me to answer it. Now, as he's asking this, I'm hearing the grumbling from the libertarian crowd. I'm going to give you. Because what I'm supposed to say is, I'm not going to give you a damn thing. We're going to take over the world and leave you alone. And by the way, when you say you're going to take over the world and leave you alone to the average American, what they're hearing is, I'm going to neglect you. I'm going to not meet your needs. You're going to be neglected if I get into office. That scares the crap out of them. But that's a whole other subject. So without skipping a beat, when he says, what are you going to give me? I said, I'm going to give you everything. Everyone was quiet. I said, here's what I'm going to do. Because what I heard, so here, I said, I'm taking too far of a step forward. I said, I'm going to give you everything. And I said, the reason your education, that you're having the problems you are with education, is because money is being taken from your community and put in the hands of people to decide what your education looks like, who don't care about you or your children, who know nothing about you or your children or your community and do not care. All they care about is getting your money and telling you how to live. I said, our plan is to completely dismantle that and put all of that money. I said, I can't tell you how many tens of billions of dollars have been taken from your community over the last 50 years since the Federal Department of Education has existed. But I know it's in the billions. And I can tell you that it's in the hundreds of billions that have been taken from other similar communities around the country over the last 50 years. I can tell you that over $2 trillion has been taken and spent by the Federal Department of Education, and things have been worse over that time. And they've been especially worse in the most marginalized communities like yours. My plan is to completely dismantle all of that, to take all of that money and all of that decision-making ability and all of that freedom and put it back in your hands so that you and your teachers and that your children and the educators can determine what the education looks like in your community, empowered with everything back in your hands where it always belonged. I got a standing ovation. Well, everyone was standing. It was outside, but I got cheers and applause from that immigrant community. And I just sold them on what could either be decentralizing education all the way down to the local level, not just taking the feds out, but even taking the states out, or possibly even full privatization. But either way, I was selling them on a very, very, very libertarian thing that we are often told is way too much to tell them right off the bat. But the way I did it was as a moral tale, right? Powerful people have taken this from you. They don't care about you. And I also had expanded upon the whole school to prison pipeline thing and how it feeds into that. And I said, by dismantling all of this and putting it back in your hands, we fix many problems, just starting with education, but moving on to economic issues, social issues, criminal justice issues. All sorts of things are solved, or at least greatly ameliorated, when you and your educators in your community are empowered to decide what your education looks like. And the money is going to actually teaching your children. That's how you sell stuff. But it took me, instead of wanting someone to ask me the question or talk to me the way that I like it, because I'm a libertarian and I like to talk primarily about philosophy and praxis and ethos and so forth, I let them say it the way they said it. I reflected back the way they said it to them. And then I brought it back to what I wanted to talk about, which was complete decentralization of everything.
And you meant more of that. And then they can look at you and say, wow, 10 days later, they're sitting there eating their Cheerios and they say, what was that guy talking about? Getting rid of all this, the schooling from the Federal Department of Education and then putting it back in our hands? What? And then they start to think about more. And then they go to the city council meeting. And they start asking some questions, or they go to the school board meeting and they start asking some questions, and then they start causing a ruckus. And that's when the change starts. Spike Cohen.
Exactly.
There's so much more. I looked at the time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.